India in a number of fields, economic, academic, and security. But now the two nations are joining in an unprecedented collaboration against the coronavirus. Well, a special flight will soon be taking a team of some 20 Israeli officials and professionals gathered by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Defense, and Health to India, where they will team up with local counterparts in a major effort testing new technologies designed to quickly diagnose COVID-19 even within minutes. Well, Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi issued this statement about the mission. I see great importance in the cooperation with India in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. This operation conveys a message of friendship and solidarity with India. It also provides a unique opportunity for scientific and technological cooperation that can assist Israel, India, and the world in coping both with the pandemic and with the economic crisis that came with it. Well, joining us now is the Israeli ambassador to India, Ambassador Dr. Ron Malka, who's in Tel Aviv, and the Indian ambassador to Israel, who we find this evening, that is Ambassador Sanjeev Singla, who is with us now from Lisbon, Portugal. And Ambassador Malka, I'm going to start with you. Explain the genesis of this project. How did Israel come to team up with India on this?
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me to this session. Well, the scientific cooperation between Israel and India has been going on for a long time. Since Israel and India are very advanced in science and technology, I think that out of 5 nations that reached the moon, 2 are Israel and India. What a great, big scope of cooperation there is between Israel and India in science and technology. So this cooperation is going on for a long time. And since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, we decided to cooperate and to focus on finding solutions with I'd say the groundbreaking technology that we have for COVID-19, for fighting COVID-19. The cooperation between the scientific advisor of Prime Minister Modi and the DRDD in Israel has been, as I said, going for a long time. So we decided to work on solutions for COVID-19. And part of this cooperation is these tests that will bring results within few seconds and can be, I would say, game changer in the fight against coronavirus. I think if we can have some technology solution that will give us results, it can give tests for COVID-19 within a few seconds, it will change the way that we conduct and the way that we live under this COVID-19 until we find vaccine for that. So this is a very good news. And we are now approaching the advanced stage of this research, which is, as I said, going on for a few weeks. And after doing some tests in Israel, we are going to the next stage, doing some tests in India.
Right, and Ambassador Singla, I want to get the Indian perspective on this, and I would imagine, just given the sheer size of the Indian population, the amount of testing that you have to do, making those tests as quick as possible has to be a crucial element.
Yes, indeed. As you mentioned, we are not merely a country, we are a continent of the size of 1.3 billion plus. As things stand today, we are doing almost 350,000 tests daily. We've done over 15 million tests already, which works out to roughly 10,000 tests per million of the population. And the challenge before us, given the size of our population, is to keep on testing more and more. And to that extent, these tests, this collaboration between India and Israel, can be transformative, and not merely for India and Israel, but for the world, for the simple reason that these tests are non-invasive, they are very low cost, they deliver the results, they have the potential of delivering the results in a matter of under a minute, and patients can be tested almost daily. And given India's huge strengths as a pharmacy to the world, given our manufacturing strengths, given the fact that we are the world's largest generics producer and one of the world's biggest global vaccine manufacturing hubs, I think there's a lot to be added when it comes to value addition.
Right, since the ambassador just mentioned that these are non-invasive, I do want to mention, Ambassador Malka, apparently these will be working at analyzing breath, saliva, even voice of patients, which is something I never heard of. So that does sound to me like very cutting edge.
Yes, it is indeed. I think that if we can just identify people, if they are positive for COVID, just from getting their audio, their voice, this is something that is groundbreaking. And of course, by scent or by just putting it in some a machine that will change, I said, gratitude and maybe just test the proteins that is there. So there are few technologies that are now going to be tested, and if one of them will be found very constructive, it's good news, and as I said, groundbreaking news for.
Right. And Ambassador Singla, you mentioned, of course, that India can operate on a scale that really Israel is on, which is more limited size, would certainly have much more difficulty. But given, of course, really putting these things in kind of the mass manufacturing that India would require, I mean, what kind of timetable would you at least hope for if these tests move successfully?
I think we have to be cautiously optimistic for the simple reason that these tests, they have to be calibrated for both sensitivity and specificity. By sensitivity, I mean they should be able to pick up even low levels of indications. And specificity, I mean they should be specific only to COVID-19. And both the sensitivity and specificity would also depend on the environment in which they are being tested. And that's why the Indian experts, Indian scientists would be joining the Israeli team in Delhi when these tests are carried out, when these samples are taken and the tests calibrated further for manufacturing on scale. I think once, under the best circumstances, once the samples are done and the teams have returned to Israel, there would be data analysis, data nuancing, which would easily take a few weeks. And should be ready to roll out maybe in about 2-3 months. In the worst case, hopefully before the end of this year. But I would again emphasize that we should be cautiously optimistic because we can only channelize the two countries' scientific efforts so as to fast track the timeline. But we cannot will the scientific results, so to say. We understand the anxieties of both the public and the public policymakers, but I think we have to be cautious.
Right. Ambassador Malka, I want to put this in the context of Israel-India relations, because anybody who knows, who looks at those over the long period, the period of decades, certainly just has to be amazed at the complete turnaround between the relations between these two countries. How significant do you see this step in that sort of bigger picture, that the evolution of that relationship?
Well, it is amazing, really amazing, and I would say even exciting to see what is happening between Israel and India. Yes, this is just joint research is just a reflection of what is happening between Israel and India. The relations are steadily growing, expanding to more fields and more areas, more pillars, and I think these relations that are based on mutual trust and mutual respect are so successful and so fruitful that we want to have as much as we can more of it, and we see it's rapidly growing. And even under this crisis, COVID-19, you can really see the reflection of the strong friendship that is between Israel and India. When just this pandemic just broke out, we got such help, such assistance from the Indian authorities, evacuating thousands of Israelis that were stranded all over India under a lockdown, complete lockdown with closed skies, and the India's authorities helped us just to evacuate Israelis, and we did it safely with no one harmed, and they all got back home. And also, I helped Israel when we needed raw materials for medicine and some protecting gears. India was beside Israel and just helping and supporting and cooperating and sharing with India our best developments for fighting COVID-19, because with this delegation that is going for the joint research, we are also bringing all research findings in fighting COVID-19. I'd say groundbreaking technologies, medical equipment and systems that we use to fight COVID-19. Those that found useful and really efficient. We are bringing them, for example, a robot, medical robot, systems for distant treatment and distant monitoring for patients, something that will reduce the exposure of the medical staff and the patients, which is so important fighting this pandemic. And other systems that we use in our hospitals were found very useful. We bring them with us just to share with our friends, precious friends in India.
Right, and I want to sort of ask the same question to Ambassador Singla, because, Mr. Ambassador, any Israeli will tell you, even though during those decades when diplomatic relations were pretty cool between the countries, India had a certain romance and attraction for Israelis. So here it's understandable the change in attitudes. In India, how has it been to sort of the shift in the diplomatic attitudes or political attitudes from New Delhi to Jerusalem? How has that been handled by the public there, the perception that now these two countries are such close allies?
Well, I think there has been a qualitative change in the trajectory of the relationship between the two countries ever since the historic visit by Prime Minister Modi to Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu to India. And our Prime Minister has always been fond of saying, and he has a conviction about it, that the relationship between the two countries, especially between India and Israel, which are of a strategic nature, have to be carried beyond the Beltway, have to be carried beyond the two leaders or beyond the two bureaucracies, and they have to be made organic at the level of two peoples. And that's where the emphasis of the two peoples of the entire establishment is right now. And one can feel it at the level of the common man as well. And I think you will see it in the popularity of, in the awareness about Israel in India, in the general popularity about their social media posts, and in general, a very deep interest in what's happening inside Israel, especially when it comes to its technological and scientific breakthroughs in niche areas.
Right. And I just want to, Ambassador Marco, just to finish up, I understand you are going to be leading the team that's flying over to India. Just give us a sense, when will that be happening and the actual work on the ground to start?
Well, it will happen in the coming 2 weeks, I can say. I will be leading this team. I will be on this plane, special plane, Israeli plane, that will come to India with the researchers, some of our best scientists that will meet some of the best scientists in India to research. And as I said, with all the equipment and the medical systems that we developed for fighting COVID-19 and were found useful. So with all this, I'm coming to India just to share with our precious friends in India all our achievements and what we have for fighting COVID-19.
Well, I'm sure the population of both countries and many others wish you Godspeed on those tests. I would like to thank the Israeli ambassador to India, Dr. Ran Malka, and the Indian ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Sanjeev Singla, joining us this evening on The Rundown on i24 News.
Thank you.